afternoon and welcome to Biztech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by our Rajhi Bank Malaysia. Now, today we welcome Jeffrey Halley, Senior Market Analyst, Asia Pacific at OANDA. Jeff, great to have you on the show.
Always a pleasure, mate. Good afternoon, everyone.
Now, Jeff, before we get your insights, we're going to take a look first at crypto markets, and then we're going to look at regional stock markets. Now, we're going to start with Bitcoin, which is at 39,780. It's down 5.86%. Ethereum is at 2,991.65. It's down it's down 5.88%. Now, looking across to regional stock markets, we've got the SGX, which is at 3,333.68. It's down 0.89%. Across regional markets, we start with KLSC. It's at 1,601.33. It's down 0.2%. Shanghai is at 3,146.11. It's down 0.66%. The ASX All Ordinaries, it's at 7,723.1. It's down 0.64%. The Nikkei is at 26,331.5. It's down 1.83%. The Hang Seng is at 21,062. It's down 0.69%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is at 2,662.5. It's down 1.14%. So we're awash with a sea of red. Jeff, tell us why.
Yeah, definitely. This is a couple of factors here. Look, we saw a sharp rise in long-dated US bond yields last night, 10 years, and also most notably the 30 years moved much higher as New York started getting quite nervous about US inflation data that's due out tonight, where we could see headline year-on-year inflation move up possibly to around 8.5%. That's actually had one positive benefit in that it's actually made the yield curve positive in the 2s, 10s tenor again. There's now 30 basis points of clear air. So we can get back to looking at the fundamentals of the economy instead of getting nervous about potential recession signals. That pushed down equities overnight. And I think this is a pattern we're going to see more often now as US, particularly US 30-year yields approach 3%, higher priced or high PE, very low dividend yield stocks, notably in the technology area, will become less appealing to some investors. And I think we're starting to see that process unfold. That's flowed through to most Asian markets today, where US futures are also lower. But we've also got these China growth concerns in Asia. So Asia's being put in a pinch here at the moment between higher US rates and fears about slowing China growth.
Now, in addition to this, Jeff, some of the key points you've just highlighted, what are some of the points that you've highlighted in your commentary today?
Definitely that pincer movement with regards to Asia, but also when you look at the small print of the Shanghai easing of lockdown restrictions. Now, China stocks tried to rally on that, and the fact that China's government is letting some tech companies release some new online games. But that rally that we saw overnight, they tried to replicate that in Asia, and it quickly ran out of steam. And China mainland equities are lower on the day, and I don't think that's a very positive signal. It suggests that the momentum in the weaker side is still the downside. When we look at the Shanghai lockdown, I think it's about half the city is now allowed to move around, but in the small print, if one person comes down with COVID-19 in an apartment complex, they'll lock down the entire complex again. Now, we know how contagious Omicron is, so it's like one hand giving and the other hand taking away. It's not quite the release of lockdown restrictions that everybody initially thought.
And I think, Jeff, one of the key things that are obviously of concern, particularly with manufacturers, is the impact on the supply chains. And that we haven't really discussed and talked about very much in terms of the news flow, but that's going to impact already. And I'll give you an example. I wanted to buy an Apple product yesterday, and they said, well, we can't guarantee delivery for at least a month because basically China is in lockdown.
Yeah, look, we're starting to see this around the world. Perhaps people, to a certain extent, are getting a bit more used to having to wait for stuff now. But certainly, there's a lot of ships backed up at the port of Shanghai, waiting to load and unload. And the danger here is that this Omicron outbreak spreads to other key manufacturing and port cities, further disrupting these logistic flows. We've got that being squeezed on both sides. We've got this post-pandemic, if you like, squeeze on logistics and supply chains. And on the other side of that value chain, we've got these hikes in commodity and input prices into the manufacturing side of it. That really does mean that inflation is going to move higher this year. That's usually not a particularly good environment for equity markets.
And Jeff, one more question, and we swing over to Europe. And all eyes are on the French elections and the ECB. Give us some insights into how that's going to impact policy as well as currencies.
Well, I don't think the ECB is going to move on Thursday. Now, one reason will be clearly the impact of the Ukraine conflict on Europe, which is effectively at the front lines of that economic war. The second one is that French runoff that we saw over the weekend. So now the second runoff will be between the incumbent President Macron and then Marine Le Pen, who is a far-right candidate who he ran off against last time. Now, the margin is much closer this time. And we've known from bitter experience over the last 4 or 5 years that when angry voters come out, they can cause upsets. And there's a few pretty juicy examples in the world where that's happened. So we can't write this off yet, but that would be a sea change. It would be a bigger change than Brexit. And I think that's one reason the euro is under pressure, and it will also stay the hand of the ECB this time around. They may signal more rate hikes in the pipeline towards the end of the year, but they'll want to wait and see how this second runoff plays out on the 24th of April, I believe it is.
Now, Joseph, always thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Always a pleasure. Have a great week, everyone.
Now, we've been speaking to Jeffrey Halley, Senior Market Analyst, Asia Pacific at OANDA, on Biztech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Rajhi Bank Malaysia. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video and podcast will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as Rajhi Bank's social media platforms. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.